In a 65,000 square foot building in Fremont, California, machines are coating sheets of glass with a crystal film about 200 times thinner than the silicon inside a normal solar panel. The company making them claims those coated panels pull roughly 30% more electricity out of the exact same sunlight than the panels bolted to American rooftops right now. The factory opened in April 2026. The panels coming off that line are the first of their kind ever built at commercial size in the United States, which raises the obvious question. If this material is really that much better, why did it spend almost 20 years trapped inside laboratories, and what finally changed? The answer starts with a rock and a mistake nobody could fix. Before continuing, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. And tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. To understand what is at stake, look at the thing this technology is trying to replace. On April 25, 1954, three researchers at Bell Labs in New Jersey, Darrell Chapin, Calvin Fuller, and Gerald Pearson, demonstrated the first practical silicon solar cell. It converted about 6% of the sunlight hitting it into electricity, enough to run a toy Ferris wheel for reporters. Newspapers announced the beginning of a new era. Then reality arrived. The cells cost hundreds of dollars per watt, so for 2 decades the only customer who could afford them was the space program. Satellites needed power and did not care about price. Everything after that was a slow grind downward. Silicon panels got more than 99% cheaper. Today, they cover deserts, barns, and the largest power plants on Earth. Roughly 95% of every solar panel on the planet is a slab of crystalline silicon. To replace that, you do not just need something clever. You need to beat a technology with 70 years of practice. The physics is simpler than it sounds. Sunlight arrives as packets of energy called photons. When a photon hits silicon, it can knock an electron loose from its atom. On its own, that electron would wander and settle back down. So manufacturers deliberately contaminate the wafer, adding a trace of phosphorus on one side and boron on the other. That creates a built-in electrical slope inside the silicon, and every freed electron rolls in the same direction. Multiply that by trillions of photons every second, and you have usable current. A panel wires 60 or 70 of these wafers together. An inverter converts that direct current into the alternating current your house uses. Your meter slows down or spins backward. The same arrangement now powers data centers in Texas, irrigation pumps in India, cell towers, highway signs, and every satellite in orbit. It is one of the most reliable pieces of hardware humans have ever mass-produced, with no moving parts and a 25-year warranty, which makes the next part strange. Engineers have spent decades trying to replace it anyway, because silicon wastes most of the light it receives. Sunlight is a mixture of colors, and each color carries a different amount of energy. Silicon is tuned to one narrow slice near the red end. Blue and violet photons carry far more energy than silicon can use, and the surplus does not become electricity. It becomes heat. Infrared photons carry too little and pass straight through. Add up those losses and a perfect single-layer silicon cell can never exceed about 29.4%. The best one ever built in a laboratory reached 28.13% in April 2026. The best panel you can actually buy sits around 25%. Silicon is essentially finished. The industry now fights over tenths of a percent. Meanwhile, the bill keeps climbing. American residential electricity prices rose almost 40% between 2021 and 2026, the fastest stretch on record, and in 2025 alone, utilities filed for $31 billion in rate increases, more than double the year before. Panels are cheap now. Land, permits, labor, racking, and wiring are not, which leaves exactly one lever worth pulling. Get more watts out of the same square foot, and the answer to that came from a rock. In 1839, a mineral pulled out of the Ural Mountains was named perovskite, after a Russian official. Then chemists realized the valuable part was its crystal structure, an atomic arrangement you can rebuild in a lab from cheap common ingredients and dissolve into what is basically an ink. In 2009, a Japanese team led by Tsutomu Miyasaka tried a synthetic perovskite in a solar cell. It converted 3.8% of sunlight, worse than Bell Labs in 1954. But it had two properties that mattered enormously. It could be painted onto a surface at low temperature instead of being grown from molten silicon at 1,400 degrees. And its appetite could be tuned. Chemists can adjust the recipe so the crystal swallows exactly the blue and green light silicon wastes while staying transparent to the infrared silicon handles well, which suggests something almost too convenient. Do not replace silicon. Stack on top of it. Perovskite takes the high-energy light, silicon takes the rest, and together they break a ceiling neither could pass alone. There was only one problem. The material kept destroying itself. Perovskite crystals are held together loosely. That is exactly why they form at low temperature, and exactly why they fall apart. Humidity attacks them, heat rearranges them, ultraviolet light breaks them down. Under an electric field, the atoms themselves drift out of position. Early cells lost most of their output in days or weeks. Solar panels are sold with 25-year warranties, so a material that dies in a month is a science project, not a product. The second obstacle was size. Almost every record-breaking perovskite cell was about the size of a fingernail, 1 square centimeter, made by dripping liquid onto a spinning disc. Scale that to a panel 2 meters long and the coating goes uneven, pinholes appear, and efficiency collapses. Certified small cells climbed past 30%, while real modules trailed by several percentage points. So the field sat in a frustrating place for 15 years. The physics worked beautifully. The product did not exist. Then, a graduate student in California stopped trying to build one perfect cell. At Stanford, around 2013, a doctoral candidate named Colin Bailey was chasing perovskite tandems. The accepted approach was monolithic. Grow the perovskite directly onto the silicon wafer as one continuous device. Elegant, highest possible efficiency, and brutally difficult because the two materials have to be chemically and electrically compatible. The silicon surface is covered in microscopic pyramids, and any flaw in one layer kills the entire cell. Bailey built the first perovskite silicon tandem a different way, mechanically stacked. Two separate devices, manufactured separately, laid one on top of the other, each with its own wiring. It surrenders a little efficiency. In exchange, you can build each half independently, seal the fragile layer properly, and troubleshoot one without ruining the other. He co-founded Tandem PV in 2016 through a Department of Energy startup accelerator at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. In April 2026, the company opened that Fremont factory, 65,000 square feet, about 40 megawatts of annual capacity, producing panels roughly 60 times larger than its research devices. Internal testing reports 29.7% efficiency. Accelerated lifetime trials show under 1% average power loss per year. Not a laboratory curiosity anymore. A real product on a real line in America. And Tandem PV is not alone. Outside Los Angeles, Kalux took an even simpler route, coating a panel's ordinary cover glass with perovskite so a passive sheet becomes a second generator, and signed a 5-year deal to put 3 gigawatts of it into modules assembled in Puerto Rico with American cells. Swift Solar bought the equipment and patents of a bankrupt Swiss manufacturer to do the same. The implications run past rooftops. More watts per square foot means less land per power plant. Solar that finally works on small roofs, vehicles, windows, and a domestic supply chain for the first time in decades. But nobody has proven a perovskite panel survives 25 summers because 25 years have not passed. Accelerated testing is an educated guess, and 40 megawatts is a rounding error next to an industry measured in terawatts. High-volume production is not planned until 2028. If it holds, the roof you already own could quietly outproduce the grid that keeps charging you more. Would you put an unproven panel on your house or wait?